Good morning. My name is Gweyth Smith, and I am uh, a retired director of guidance who has worked for many years with college admissions and now have an independent practice. The topic this morning that we have is, in fact, letters of recommendation. And how important are they? And what can you do as a student to help get those to work well for you? So, with that, how important a role? It's a very important role. And what you're going to see is that as I have gone and talked with a number of admissions people from around the country, first and foremost, it's important to know that all admissions decisions are academic decisions. It is that big mass in the middle that begins to distinguish one student from another, where the letters really begin to play a significant role. I'm going to begin to show you comments that have been made by college admissions people regarding the letters of recommendation. Chrissy Finley, who is an admissions counselor at Bucknell University, talks about stories, how important stories are in this process. It becomes, oh my goodness, I am sorry. Oh. All right, sorry, we had a technical issue here. And I want to begin talking in terms of the value of the letters of recommendation. M. Bixell, who is a counselor at Wittenberg University in Ohio, talks about it is the teachers, through the teacher's recommendation, that the admission committee can tell if a student will excel or has the potential to excel in a particular college environment. We have schools from all over the country. We have grading systems that are different. It is really essential that they get teacher recommendations that will help give some context to this particular student and how well that student has fared in that particular setting. Giselle Martin at Emory University talks about it being a really helpful role if the student makes thoughtful choices when asking teachers. Thoughtful choices, extremely important. It should be teachers who are in the junior or senior year teachers, because the more recent the experience, the higher level the course, it is going to help college admissions people understand the context. It does not have to be someone where everyone has been extremely successful in a class. Keep that in mind as we go through the rest of this. While curriculum and grades play a much larger role in the application review process, letters are essential to gain insight into the student beyond the numbers. Again, think regarding that. Curriculum, grades, they are local. They give you context. What you really want to be able to see is, who is this individual? What kind of contributions might this student make to our school community? I often talk about college campuses creating a living laboratory to bring differences together as we move forward in the 21st century, so that we can gain a better appreciation of people unlike us. People who are different, may come from different cultures, may have different life experience, whether some kids are from rural areas, some are from urban areas, some live in suburban places. It's differences that is really the key factor with this. Tamara Seiler at Rice was a past president of the Texas Association for College Admission Counselors, talks about how definitely they are important as they provide insight into the student's academic ability, potential, passion for learning, and the ability to take constructive criticism. There is no question whatsoever, that the vast majority of students are going to experience difficulty at some point in time in college. How they respond to that really helps to give insight as to the potential of that individual student. So the idea of taking constructive criticism, extremely important. And Greg Roberts, the Dean of Admissions at the University of Virginia, makes it very clear. Great letters of recommendations are not going to get students accepted to the school if they're not academically qualified and ready to undertake the challenges that that particular college offers. Extremely important that one knows that. What are you looking for from counselors and teachers? This is really directed at the college admissions people, but I think it is important for one to understand what that means. Counselors are looking for stories. The transcripts will reveal grades, high school profiles show grade distribution. It's the direct stories about the student that carries much power. Remember, developing a living laboratory on a college campus, developing community, that is one of the really most important factors. It's important that teachers personalize or highlight a few key strengths so that they know the student is a match. The letter should be mindful to whom it is addressed. Now, as you think about that, teachers know students for about 40 minutes a day within the context of a classroom. It is extremely important for students to get to know their teachers, to become active learners within that classroom, and to develop relationships with your classroom teacher in high school. What do you get from that? Very simply, a teacher who knows you better, knows how you learn, knows how you deal with adversity, knows all of these different kinds of things. It's extremely important. It will give much greater detail to the student as they begin to have things written about them. Again, Tamara, teachers should focus their comments on the life of the mind. It is great not to only know how a student excelled, but how she dealt with challenges. I did a program, an article for Parade magazine a couple of years ago, and in that, it was the A list of colleges. I then asked college admissions people what they wanted the students, what they wanted teachers to write. One of the common threads were kids who had struggled in classes and how did they handle the adversity. Somebody who may have started slowly but worked at it, worked through extra help, worked through all of these different kinds of things. That becomes a key factor because they get to know who you are. The detailed information about academic potential and motivation and a work ethic and the special talents or effort extended. How does the student compare with others taught? You will hear time and time again from me, it is context. And Barbara Gill is a senior VP at the University of Maryland. She has read thousands upon thousands of letters of recommendation. The greater the detail, and how do teachers get detail? They get detail by knowing the student and knowing the student beyond just the academic arena of that 40-minute classroom day by day. Keep that in mind. The more teachers and counselors know about you, the more effective they are going to be in writing letters of recommendation. As you go through and see these things, teachers in academic subjects from the junior or senior year are most helpful. Why? Generally speaking, the coursework becomes more difficult, becomes more complex, is of a higher sophistication the older that you get, and the later in high school. So those junior and senior years. And often students will say, but my ninth grade teacher, I love that person. That's all well and good. But it does not become a good predictor as to what do you bring to this college or college campus. For a required letter of recommendation, teachers should be in what we term the core areas: English, history, foreign language, math, and science. Now, it's kind of interesting because the next comment is going to talk about the special areas such as athletics, music, theater, journalism, etc. They can be helpful as well, but keep in mind that for recruited athletes, it doesn't matter what is written or read. It is going to be performance based. And they're going to use coaches. They're going to use, if it's team sports, AAU, and different things to determine. Music and theater often are through auditions or tapes, or CDs that are going to be read, or going to be listened or looked at. Most helpful can be journalism, because your advisor there for student literary magazines and or the school newspaper can really give a good context in terms of what is taking place. So that becomes a very important person because, quite frankly, coaches, directors, people involved with music, people involved with theater, individuals involved with the journalism or art programs, etc., that have publications, they get to know students a lot better normally than the classroom teacher, who may not have any relationship with that person except for the classroom. So it becomes very important for the student to take some control of that. Keep that in mind. You need to be empowered. Anne again talks about likes to see a student choose a teacher who spent the most class hours with the student and had a tremendous transformational effect on the student. Again, getting to know that individual really becomes a very important piece. Writing the same recommendation, etc., bad thing by teachers, but you have no control over that. Just need to be sure that, again, you get to know that teacher begin to know you as that individual. That is absolutely critical because they don't often know much beyond that classroom piece. You need to be able to give teachers, and think about the context of this. If teachers know more about you, you may have hobbies, you may have travel, you may have experiences that you have no idea that that teacher may have had as well. What that does is to heighten the interest the teacher has, the enthusiasm that teacher has. The same holds true for counselors. I tell students all the time, stop in even if it's for 30 seconds to say hello, have a visual with your school counselor. Keep that counselor in the loop in terms of what you're doing and where you are in the process. If you have written your essays, and hopefully at this time most of them are pretty well done, you want to share as much information, and one of the things that you can share is your essay that you have that you're going to submit, because that is going to divulge also information about you. And again, you may resonate with a particular teacher as a result of that they didn't even have an understanding that this was something that was important. There is that understanding, and you as students need to understand. Teachers teach. When they write recommendations, it is something that they're doing beyond the scope of their responsibility. It is extremely important that they are appreciated for that. And as I sum up later on, I will have some things that I think are extremely important for students to do as you kind of go through that part of it. Who to ask? Most frequently you want to ask more recent teachers that you've had in school. You want to be able to have people who really know you. And again, coaches, advisors, people who work in those specialized areas, very important. If you do not have that experience in school, that becomes one of those things where it becomes extremely important that you give as much information as you can to the teacher or counselor. They need to know you. They need to get a real feel for who you are. Information is power, and you can take that responsibility on, especially in schools where there are huge counselor loads, that teachers have large classroom sizes, and they may have in the hundreds, low hundreds, but mid hundreds of numbers of students. So you need to be able to appreciate that, and you take that responsibility for letting them know who you are, what's important to you, what some of your dreams might be, etc. The other question that I like to talk about is how to ask. You never, ever, ever ask a teacher to write with a crowd. You don't take your friends with you. You don't stop them in the hall. You want some private time with the teacher. It may be that you have not performed the way that teacher would like. The teacher may say to you, I'm really not comfortable. I don't know if I can be an asset to you. As hurtful as that might be, it is one of the best comments a teacher could make. Extremely, extremely important. You want to ask the teacher if you might speak with that individual privately for a few minutes. You might want to have your resume of activities and involvements that you could share with them. If you have your essay, it would be important to be able to share that. Now, teachers may say, I don't need it, I know what I'm doing. Fine and good. If that be the case, the least or the worst that's going to happen is they're going to know that this is an important process for you, that you have taken it very seriously, and you would like to be quote unquote interviewed if that's appropriate. I know teachers who will not write a letter of recommendation until they have interviewed the student, even the student they've had in their classroom that year. They need to know more. They want to know what those dreams are, what some of those thoughts are in terms of the student's future. It helps teachers write a more detailed, more thorough, more intimate recommendation. The same holds true with counselors. Counselors need to get to know what is important to you and what kinds of things that you're looking to do in the future. That is, I can't tell you how important that is. So you want to ask privately. You want to ask where there is time to do that. You want to have that opportunity where there can be an exchange with a teacher. I will tell you that from my experience, it very, very rarely happens that it happens that way. And because of that, it just makes a far greater impression on that teacher in terms of who you are. It's a very mature way of doing business, quite frankly. The follow-up, I mentioned to you before, these are not things that teachers are required to do contractually. So, it's very important, again, for a thank you. The thank you can be an email, if you use email with teachers at school, and I know some schools where it's the main communication link. It could be a small note that you leave in the teacher's mailbox, so you don't have to feel embarrassed. But thanking them for the time that the teacher has taken to write a letter of recommendation on your behalf. It in times can change the relationship you have with a particular teacher. Keep thinking about that. It is so important that you have that. I have a question from somebody from the audience, and I'm just looking at where that student's school is located. I'm located on Long Island in New York and had spent the majority of my career working in schools on Long Island. I was in Westchester County back in the day for a few years as well, working as a director. The context of where you apply, and this has to do with recommendations as well. Think outside the box. Think of places where not everybody in your school is looking to apply. It is going to give you a much better look by that school. Colleges want differences. And when I talk differences, I'm not talking just looking at racial, ethnic, religious differences. We're talking geographic differences. We're looking at schools that are international. We're looking to bring a global community together. Keep that in mind as you begin to look at your schools, and especially if you look outside your region and teachers and counselors know that you are looking outside your region. That is an important piece of information, again, for colleges. It talks about a student who may be more secure within himself. It may be somebody who has been independent for a bit, has traveled independently, has had those experiences. That's where it really gives a sense in terms of the students' relation, in terms of how they want to and what they're capable of doing. Letters of recommendation and scholarships, they're somewhat different. Usually for recommendations for scholarships, my experience has been service, community service and involvement has been really very, very important. I know in my experiences there were local service organizations, the Kiwanis, the Rotary, all of those business organizations within your community. Most of those have scholarships for high school students. It requires an essay. Know the organization. Know what they're looking for in terms of what is their primary function. And those letters become important to be able to verify and to validate what their criteria is. If it's a service organization within a community, that is really geared toward helping the homeless or helping this or that, if you've had experiences there that can be validated, those can help you in terms of those letters of recommendation. Not a question with that. Most schools with scholarships like that, they are one-year scholarships. So as you begin to think of colleges and where you're going to go, I use a phrase that is, frankly, it is both an educational and a business decision. The cost of education today is off the charts. There are private schools that have gone over the $60,000 a year. And when you consider that the average amount of time it takes to graduate from a four-year college, now this is just statistics, is 5.5 years. That's better than $250,000 at one of those schools. So be cognizant of cost and what the loans will be at the end. It may look wonderful that you have great scholarship opportunities from service organizations or from different kinds of organizations. Those are generally 1 year. So it may help in your freshman year. But the financial aid piece, the costs don't go down, they will go up. The institutional money will stay the same in the norm, providing that you have no major changes in your financial situation that you are presenting. All right, so to sum up some of the things here with recommendations, be absolutely certain that teachers know you beyond what they see from you within the classroom. That can be your responsibility. Take the time to become a more active learner. Think of what you communicate if you're struggling in a class and you go for extra help. It's not the in thing to do, I understand that. But what it does is to communicate a great deal about your motivation, about your drive, about your character, and about how important your education is. That teacher is going to be able to write with great detail about your tenacity, about your attitude, and about what you will bring to any college or university. They are far more powerful than what you will have. And just think about it. Think of this within this relationship. I'm going to tell you that probably 95% of the students will go to the teacher where they have excelled in the classroom, where you have been the best thing since sliced bread. Now put yourself in the reader, the evaluator's chair, and you begin to see these. You begin to get that sense in terms of, oh my God, another one, another one, another one. It's very easy to flip those over and not spend a lot of time. What you really want to have are teachers who have seen you in not the best of times. It may be a teacher that you had in grade 9 in a course, and again you have them in grade 11 in a course. That change in you, if it has been huge, provides a very, very strong letter of recommendation. From a young child, so to speak, who was immature, who didn't get it, all of a sudden growing into that young adult who now has better direction, sees the importance of what they're doing in school, and want to make a change with that. That becomes extremely important. Don't be afraid to ask teachers where you have struggled. Obviously, it ought to be a teacher where you did something about the struggle. It doesn't mean that you went from a D to an A. It means it shows progress. It shows that you might have gone from that D and moved it to a C plus or a B and are working diligently toward that. You become a far better predicted success for your freshman year of college than does the student who might have flown through, never dealt with adversity, and we don't know. It's the unknown. So do that and keep that in mind as you begin to ask teachers and who it should be that you want to have writing on your behalf. Okay, I don't see any other questions that are here. I apologize for some of the technical pieces. It was on me. It wasn't on College Week Live. And I certainly hope you have found some of this to be beneficial for yourself. All right, you have a great day. Best of luck to all of you as you pursue the future. Keep in mind the deadlines. They are critical that you have applications in on time. Take care. My very best to you.